welcome back to our EFMP story. We have today our executive director and founder, Michelle Norman. Hey, Michelle.
Hi, good morning. Got my
Morning.
coffee. By the way, did you see this?
No, what does it say?
Gift from Stacy Huseman, another advocate.
Oh,
Well-behaved women rarely make history.
exactly.
This is definitely one of those things that makes me smile in the morning.
That's awesome. I'm like, I just have mermaid thin
Hey,
notes.
love it.
Shiny. Okay.
Shiny bright.
Yeah, so part of we're really excited to have you today and to chat about your experience. I know a lot of people are already familiar because that's kind of how you started Partners in Promise, is sharing your story with not only your community in Virginia, but also with the military community.
Yep.
What a journey you've had over the past year. So I don't even know where to begin with what, we could jump right into your advocacy, or we could jump into your, story, but let's start with your family and, your military connection and everything.
Absolutely. So first of all, Navy spouse, go Navy. Been a spouse for, over 2 decades. My husband, Cass, I met him at the University of Texas, Hook 'em. We are both engineers, and when I met him, he always had a desire to fly. And during our college career, he's like, I really want to serve our country too. So he joined AOCS while we are still, kind of dating, and ended up being able to fly, got winged, and we got married shortly after that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been quite the Navy adventure. We lived on both coasts in California and Virginia. We've lived in Japan. We've had a lot of adventures on the way, a lot of travel, all that great stuff. And then we got to a point where we wanted to start a family. So for me professionally, I was able to get jobs as I guess you could say a private engineer with a couple companies. And then when we moved to Japan, did some advocacy and teaching English, and then ended up getting a job as a Navy civilian engineer. And that was a blessing because for the following 2 duty stations, I was able to work for the Navy. So I was able to kind of keep that going in my career. But we did get to a point where we're like, we want to start a family. And so we were in California, and we struggled for a few years, but we were able to get pregnant before we left, and we made our long journey back to Virginia. And so this kind of starts our EFMP journey. We bought our first house. We were super excited. And we were sleeping like in the room over the garage because we were still working on the nursery in the master bedroom. I was about 26 weeks or so, and I started getting contractions, and I was already high risk and already taking it very easy. But we kind of knew that these weren't going to stop. And I think we were also naive as a young couple, I guess you could say. Surely we can stop these, and surely I can make it to full term. Well, life had a different story for us that day. So Marisa, our first daughter, came into the world September 2003. She was 2 pounds and 3 ounces. And it's a blessing, but it was the start of a very, very long journey for us. Anyone who's been in the NICU before, it's like a roller coaster, and it truly, you have highs, you have lows. She stayed in the NICU for 8 months. There were a lot of life and death situations every single day. Fortunately, Cass was home. He was not in deployment, so he had to take emergency leave. We had a hospital that was fairly close to us, so I was able to drive every day to be with her. Pumping and being by her side. It just was, a crazy chaotic time. Honestly, some of it's kind of a blur. I think when you go through something very traumatic in your life, it's a little bit of that PTSD. Yeah. So there's only so many moments I can remember from those 8 months that she was in the hospital. But she was a superstar when she was first born. The doctor's like, oh, wow, her lungs are great. Everything's fantastic. And then within her first week of life, she did have a brain bleed on the left side of her brain. And that really was the big, the big news that the doctor had to sit us down. The neonatologist said, hey, she may never walk. She may never talk. She may never be independent. Just wanted to let you know. And that was probably the hardest thing that we ever had to deal with, because we're still young, naive. This is not the way life's supposed to be. Um, and so that was really a tough time for us in a lot of ways. And I learned at that point that I was going to have to be her biggest advocate. That you know your child best. And that's when we started doing all this research and making sure that we could do everything we could to make sure that she would have those opportunities to surpass these doom and glooms that the doctors are telling us. And EFMP, there you go. I think my husband's staff kind of came to him and said, hey, now's the time to start filling out the paperwork for EFMP. I don't even remember who helped us with it. We did have a hospital advocate that helped in our beginning stages because we were so new to everything and so overwhelmed with just the everyday process of keeping our child alive.
Yeah.
To have someone help guide some of that.
Then you're a part of the EFMP program at that point, and
we were, and honestly, we didn't really do much with the EFMP program at first because we were so into the medical world, as far as just keeping her alive and doing our research on where, we need to get a reconstruction airway surgery done. So back in the day when there wasn't really great internet, now I'm dating myself, trying to figure out, where we could take her to get the best care that TRICARE still, would be in their network. And so we fought to get her out of the hospital and get a second opinion, which is another tip and trick, is always get second opinions no matter what. Especially if it's something that critical of reconstructing an airway to breathe without a trach. We made sure that the person who developed that surgery, was in Cincinnati. We're like, that's where we need to go. And I don't care if I need to drive like 2 days to get there.
So you were a true advocate from the very start. I mean, that's something that not everyone would think of, and I think that just shows your connection to advocacy and how that's just part of who you are. But for people who aren't necessarily, that doesn't come to mind at first. Just because you're in the military doesn't mean you can't ask these hard questions, and doesn't mean you can't be that advocate for yourself. Like, I think that's something, it's hard for us to know when to push back. So that's awesome that you were able to.
I think you're right. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think as a military family, we tend to not cause waves. We believe in order, good order, and law. And so when you have authorities speaking to you about this is what needs to be done, we tend to be like, okay, sure, that sounds like a great idea. But when something doesn't sit right, or if you do your research and, okay, this gentleman, this neonatologist or whoever it might be, does a surgery maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and then you do your research and find out that, the person who invented the surgery does it 3 or 4 times a week, who are you going to go to? You really have to think, this is such a critical thing. I want to go to someone. I don't want my child to be the guinea pig. I want my child to get the best care that they can if it's available. And so that was always my mindset, just if there's someone who really excels at something, why would I not go that direction? And so
not to be that, you don't want to be that parent too. It's not just the military component, it's there's a stereotype of being like a squeaky wheel as being a negative, but when it comes to your children, like you have to put those feelings aside, that guilt of speaking up aside.
Absolutely. That's true. You have to get used to that feeling because it was there, like, why am I speaking up? Why am I saying this? Am I doing this wrong? Everyone's telling me we should just stay here and not fight it. And there was definitely a feeling inside me where you're embarrassed to even sometimes speak up, but once you get over that, it's easy.
But it speaks to, our whole community where we're asking people with Partners in Promise to step up and become advocates for their children, but also for others. And I think that you already have the experience you need, in these little moments of your life, whatever they might be. You have those moments where you can put your personal feelings aside and know that there's something you're fighting for. So that sounds like where you're at with your story. Putting that aside and fighting.
Right. You have to kind of trust that gut instinct too.
Yeah.
and know that if something's not right and you go to bed still thinking about it, then the chances it's not right.
Thanks, Michelle. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, I think we've touched on quite a few things. So, if you can say no, and we'll just have to chat again because I'm sure there will be updates and things to look to in the rest of this year and then the years to come.
Well, I don't really have much to say other than thank you, Jennifer. You have really brought a lot of life and direction to Partners in Promise, and I love these series. I look forward to hearing about everybody else's EFMP stories because I know they're all truly unique. And I just feel very blessed to be a part of this community. There's some amazing, resilient, strong families, and I know that we can learn a lot from each other and build each other up and advocate together for our families. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, and keep an eye out for more stories coming.
All
Thanks.
right.